Okay, we're good. Yeah, I like that song. Your love makes it worth it. Your love makes it worth it all, you know. I just surrender to you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you for this day. Thank you for for your love that makes life worth it, that makes life worth living, that brings worth, that brings value, that 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 brings appreciation to everything, to everything, to everything, to all of it, to everything. Thanks, Lord. Thanks, Lord. Thank you, 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 thank you. Yeah. So what will we talk about today? Um, how about if we talk about letting go of control? That sounds like a good topic. Letting go of control. So when I think of letting go of control, surrendering, surrendering, surrendering um, my will, my desires for God's desires, for life's desires. And various and diverse faiths and religious persuasions, they employ a practice called renunciation. Renunciation. And the role of the renunciate seems to be prevalent in some fashion or another in most scriptures and sutras. And each defines the role of the renunciate in their own prescribed form. So what is renounced has a little bit different flavor to it from one to the other. Some people say it's a renouncing of the world. Um, Others see it as a renouncing other things. I want to look at the renunciation as a renouncing of control, as a spiritual practice. I want to look at it from that way of looking at it. And I imagine that some may see renunciation as a forceful renouncing of the world sin of the world system, as a forceful renouncing of the world system, you know, and see renunciation as inciting protest and rebellion and uh, aimed at what somebody sees as an unjust control of the world, you know. But I don't think that's what the renunciation is really all about. I don't think it's about that. I don't see renunciation as taking a stand against control. Against control. It's not about renouncing other people's attempts to control. It's not about renouncing other people's attempts to control. It's more about surrendering your own compulsion to control. Your own compulsion to control. See, you cannot try to control itself without defaulting back to being controlling. You can't control itself without defaulting back to being controlling. So control is not relinquished or done away with by force or by effort. It's not done away with by force or effort. The renunciation of control is not a matter of taking a stand against control. It's not about forceful demonstrations and rioting over social injustice, as some might grossly misunderstand renunciation of control as being that. It's not that at all. Some people look at peace. They define peace as being in control. And they associate peace with having a tight grip on things. Yet why are we gripping things so tightly? Why are we choking the very life out of them? It's because we fear. We're afraid. We're afraid we'll lose something. We fear loss, and because we fear loss, we grip things. We hold them tightly. We fear letting loose of things, so we wrestle with them and we try to pin them down, and we hold them with this clenched fist. Yeah, in our force to take control back, we ourselves become the very oppressors that we often stand against. Because what we fail to see is that the problem is not who is in control. The problem is not who is in control. It's the compulsion to control. It's the compulsion to control itself that the issues come from. Yeah, consider this for a moment, just a moment. Softly, silently. Who can control us if we don't resist? We're not resisting who can control us. Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching, he said, because the master does not contend, none in the world can contend with him. And who can control the master? None. For he is in control of himself. Who can control the master? No one. Because he's in control of himself. Oh, it reminds me of King Solomon. He once said that better a patient person than a warrior, one with self-control than one who takes a city. Better a patient person than a warrior, and one with self-control than one who takes a city. This is true, because one who fights the impermanence of the world outside of him, outside of himself, enters into a great amount of folly and suffering. Folly and suffering. Such a person will always be at odds with the world in which he dwells, always trying to change things, always trying to change other people's minds, other people's beliefs, other people's desires, all the time while being a slave to his own mind, a slave to his own beliefs, and a slave to his own desires. He stays stuck in his, while others grow free from theirs. And who's the skillful one? Who's the skillful one in that case? So it's only when we can let others have minds of their own that we can have a mind of our own. A renunciation of control is about accepting that things come and go. Renunciation of control is accepting the impermanence of things. Renunciation of control is about accepting the impermanence of things. So what's it like when we grab and we try to hold on to things that are powerful? I can remember when I was a teenager, I worked on a farm in Missouri. I think Del said he's from Missouri, and I worked on a farm in Missouri, and back then we all worked on the farm and we drank beer all day, and we'd get up pretty looped, and we would grab a pig by its hind legs and see who could hold on to it the longest, and it would wear you out and tear you up, and you wouldn't know it till you sobered up the next day and found out that your hands were all sprained and trying to hold on. Yeah. We get rope burns, don't we, when we cling to a rope that's being pulled out of our hands. So we suffer when we cling. We suffer when we cling. But what's it like if we don't cling, if we abandon ourselves to the present flow of life? What's that like? How can we relate to that, experientially? What's that like when we abandon ourselves to the flow of life? What's it like not to be in control, not being caught up in that stream of thinking? What's that like? Because thinking is a useful tool. you know. But the problem is we've become dependent upon it. When we become dependent upon our thinking becomes a habit. But then it's sort of like using duct tape to fix everything. A man duct tapes the hole in his jeans. He duct tapes the electrical cord that the dog chewed apart. He uses it for all sorts of odd and diverse things, you know. And before long, the duct tape becomes a shortcut. But its ability to maintain functionality is very limited. And the way a broken hammer handle is held together with duct tape, it's doomed to eventually come back apart with use. The duct tape becomes a lazy person's way of fixing everything, rather than taking the time and the effort to fix things correctly. And likewise with our thinking, many dilemmas that we find ourselves in, many dilemmas require a spiritual solution. The healing, the reparation comes with the practice of meditation or prayer or silence, those sort of things. Not by thinking. Not by thinking. Such dilemmas that require spiritual solutions as such require that we have a resolved heart, a commitment, patience to practice, to employ those spiritual solutions efficiently. Everything else, all the thinking, all the rationalization, all of that simply becomes just a duct tape solution when spiritual practice is required. But we're obsessed with that. We've gotten in the habit of trying to think our way through things rather than just grow through things. We can grow through things, grow out of things, rather than trying to think our way out of them. You know. And the thinking, the rationalization and the thinking they become like this film, like this covering that separate us from the wildness of living in reality. These membranes, these pleura, these membranes that come between us and the wild and permanent reality that's outside of us, you know. That membrane, that ego between us and the life that's really here. And the membrane has its purpose. It's useful in the realm of time. But just the way a snake needs to shed its skin, as a tree needs to shed its leaves, as the butterfly it sheds its chrysalis. So there comes a time for the ego to be shed from us, to come out of its layers, to come out of this membrane that separates us from the reality that's in the world that we are in. And the membrane, or the ego, has its function to protect us during infancy. It's got its place during infancy. But as we mature, the time comes to let go of it, to be released from it. And unless we can release ourselves from it, we don't mature. We stay in that place of infancy, that place of immaturity. So we see that somebody with a really strong, thick ego is simply somebody that's stuck in immaturity. They're stuck in infancy. They're not growing free of it. They're not growing free of it. And we see grown people, grown men and women, acting childish because they got stuck in that stage of infancy and they've never been able to shed that ego. Insisting that they have their own way, throwing fits of rage when they don't get their way. That's childish behavior. Childish behavior. It comes from being stuck in the ego, in that membrane, and not growing out of it, you know. And hopefully that the sound is still working. I see my mic on. Okay. Yeah, I'm here. I don't know if anybody else in the room besides you dancers can hear me. I'll try dropping it and picking it back up 1 minute. How about now? Now do I have sound? Okay. All right. So I was just saying how that when we get stuck in the ego, we don't mature. We stay in that stage of infancy, of immaturity, and we act like children, like spoiled children when we're stuck in that. Insisting that we have control, trying to take control, to get our way. I don't know what's going on. Maybe is it better? Yeah, maybe I'm moving my mic away from my face too much. Okay, I'll try to keep it closer to my mouth. But growing out of the ego is a way of softening up. It's a way of loosening our grip. It's a way of not contracting so defensively like a frightened turtle does. It's more of a being like a blossoming rose, opening its heart to the sun and the frost alike, to both, to the good and the bad, blossoming in that depth. Staying open, staying receptive, staying approachable, despite what circumstances we find ourselves in. That's what the blossoming is like, you know. Keeping our petals open, whether it gets hot or cold. And it's when we try to manage and control life, what happens is that robs us of the experiencing the real life, the real life. Because real life is not what we have managed to make up. It's not a plastic life. Real life is a very unpredictable life. Real life is a life that grows and manifests itself on the fly. Real life seems to always leave us guessing what will happen next. Oh, yeah. Real life seems to always leave us guessing what will happen next. And I recall what Jesus said. He said that he that loses his life will save it. Will save it. So if you want the real life, you have to lose yours. You have to lose that life that you manage and that you maintain by force or willpower. If you want to live a real life, authentic life, you need to lose yours that you manage and maintain by force and willpower, by control. If you want a real life, you have to become powerless. And when you admit you're powerless and surrender to the flow of life, it will carry you to places that you've never dreamed possible. Life will take you to places beyond your wildest imagination. Life will take you into what has never entered into the mind of man. What life itself has prepared for you before the very foundations of the earth. If you'll be powerless, if you'll quit resisting and let the flow take you, it will take you to some pretty awesome places. But what happens is we can become so obsessed with managing our lives. We can become so obsessed with managing our lives, with trying to control it all, that we fail simply to live them, that we fail simply to live. We can become so obsessed with trying to manage and control our lives that we fail simply to live our lives. We can get so caught up in making plans rather than just letting life just surprise us. I like something that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote. He wrote this poem. Got a really dry mouth today. This poem is by J.R.R. Tolkien, and it says this: all that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken. A light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall the blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king. So there's this way of wandering the earth without a goal in mind. There's a way of wandering around without a goal in mind. What we have to do is see if we can simply enjoy a sunny afternoon walk, simply for the pleasure of the walking itself. Not to get anywhere in particular, not as a means to an end, just to do it. Walking just because we like to walk. Not needing to get anywhere, not needing to go anywhere. Walking like that. Can we breathe like that? Can we breathe not to catch our breath, not to blow out a candle, not to shout, but to breathe just simply because we enjoy it, because it feels good. Simple pleasures, you know. But if we have to make all these things as a means to an end, it takes the pleasure and the joy out of them. So what we have to do is see if we can be content, seeing where life takes us. Can we be content seeing where life takes us, taking what we see come our way as coming from a source of deep, unfathomable benevolence? Can we do that? Can we do that? Can we be content seeing where life takes us, taking what we see coming our way as coming from a source of deep, unfathomable benevolence, you know? If we can, then we can dare to go out into the untrodden wilderness. Okay. Well, welcome back, Dancer. So, if we can trust, we can trust what's coming at us as being the best thing for us, then we can go into places in the wilderness. We can go down pathways that are new to us. We can be trailblazers rather than followers. Life can become interesting. But when we find that we need to take known paths, then that's more of an issue of control, and it robs us of the zest and vivaciousness of life. But when we can just go out and let life take us, have us, lead us, guide us, then we can discover for ourselves that the path that life is tailored specifically for us. This is the best path, not the known path, not the path that you can control, not the path that comes by manipulation, not the path that comes out of your fixed plans, but the path that life has created for you as it comes. And there is a path specifically for you, for you. There's a plan specifically for me. We are one. We are one. We are one. One body of creation, one body of business. But we're members in particular. We're all snow. Yes, we're all snow, but at the same hand, no two snowflakes are alike. One body, yet each member has its specific function and its attributes. And only by letting each member have its specific functions and attributes can it supply the rest of the body with what it's made for. It's what it's made for. But this isn't about forcing our way or forcing ourselves into any kind of position. It's not about that. It's about allowing each member of the body to find its place in the space that's given to it by life without strife and contention. It's an opening and a willingness to change, to let love transform us. An opening and a willingness to change and to let love transform us. We work with the change rather than against it. The change becomes a tool in the hands of love, and we work with it rather than against it. We don't need to conform to the world. Conformity is not change. Conformity is a resistance to impermanence. Conformity is a resistance to impermanence. And in no instance are we changing back into that fixed dead form. Simply not about that. It's not conforming to what we were. This is about changing by flowing into the space that life supplies us with moment by moment by moment by moment. By occupying with love. The place that life has prepared us to be. Right? Yeah. So impermanence has its role in keeping life fresh. You really can't step into the same river twice because it's always flowing. Stepping into the same river, the same old river, is an illusion. The same old river is nothing but a trick the mind plays on it. The same old river is a trick that the mind plays on it. And the ego's attempts to control and make things like safe by keeping them away from the inevitability of change, what that does is it makes life dull. It makes it drab, a drag, a bore, a bummer. It does. Consider, like, who's more alive? Is it the accountant with a steady job who has no time to leave his desk, who's making $1 million? Who's more alive? Is it that guy, or is it the poor man who spent his last few dollars on an airplane to skydive out of? Who's more alive? And yet, our practice is not to seek out the sensational. It's not to seek out sensational. Our practice is not to seek out the sensational, but to be sensitive. Be sensitive to the point that everything becomes sensational. So that that which is sensational comes out of our sensitivity rather than our seeking outside of ourselves what is sensational. Like the way a kid or a child sees the world new for the first time. Before he learns to define and encapsulate the world into this prison of of knowledge and rationalization, definitions. It's like the kid who just sees it without knowing anything about it. See the world that way. To see the world with those eyes. Because see, what makes the world sensational to those who practice sensitivity, that comes from the inside. Where what makes the world sensational to the carnal or the egotistical man, that comes from what's outside of him. So he's always looking, he's always seeking for the next best thing, right? The egotistical dude is always out there looking for the next best thing because he lacks the sensitivity that makes everything sensational. And so you can take the guy who's the practitioner, who's the spiritual practitioner, and you can take that guy, throw him in a cold, dark dungeon, and that guy can find life to be absolutely sensational there, wonderful there. And the carnal or the egotistical man, you can place him in a luxurious palace with all the fanfare and entertainment that goes along with that. And that man will find life dull and loathsome. He'll find it a bore. The one who practices sensitivity will stand in awe of everything. The carnal man, he'll be bored in the midst of the sensational things going on around him. So let's consider the relationship between the impermanence that's here now and our sensitivity to that impermanence. Let's look at our relationship between the impermanence that's here and our sensitivity to it, because if we're unsensitive to that impermanence, we're going to be stuck in the same old world, the same old rut, day in and day out. So how does the impermanence affect our senses? Are we sensitive? Are we open to change? Are we sensitive to watch the world move and change around us? You know? Are we sensitive to those subtle differences between warm and cold, wet and dry, soft and hard? Do we taste those subtle differences in the food we eat? The loudness and softness that come with the voice, the different tones, the slight gleam in the eye, the little twinkle in the eye. Are we even aware of it when we're happy or sad, or angry or calm? Are we in tune with that? Are we in touch with that? Because all this stuff's going on, yet at the center of our being, in the middle, in our dantian, is a place of stillness and quietness. And all this stuff out here comes out of that. It's because the stillness is there that the other stuff is possible. That the other stuff is possible. Because without that inner stillness there, we get all caught up in that flow of impermanence. And being caught up in it, we fail to be sensitive to it. Without that inner stillness, we get all caught up in that flow of impermanence going on outside of us, and caught up in it, carried away by it. We fail to become sensitive to it. We become insensitive, and then it becomes a drag. So it's like this. You can sit on the riverbank, and from the bank of the river, from the shoreline, you can watch the river flow by and watch all the boats go up and down it. But if you're in that river, in a boat, the impression that you'll get, or what you'll see, it will look like the shore itself is moving by. When in reality, the shore is not passing by. It's not the thing that's moving. It's the water that you're in that's moving. And in a like manner, in the same way, sensitivity to the life that's flowing all around us is only recognized by sitting on the shore. It's only recognized by being in that inner stillness. Consider that in a world that all there is blue, you don't know what blue is. If that's all there is. In a world full of noise, caught up in that flow, caught up in that, you don't know what sound is. You don't see what you're into while you're in it, right? You don't see what you're into while you're in it. The ignorant don't know they're ignorant because they're ignorant. The ignorant don't know they're ignorant because they're ignorant. When you're caught up in the ego, you don't know it. When you're caught up in the ego, all your views, all your opinions, and all your judgments seem justified while you're caught up in its fury. It's only when you can return to the talent that you can return to your senses, that you begin to see what's actual and what's real, what's seen when you're not caught up in the torrent, in the flow. So sensitivity It comes with the silence. It comes with the quietness. It comes with the stillness. It comes from taking that posture of being on the shore rather than caught up in the stream. Sensitivity to the impermanence, the recognition of it, comes in the out-breath, the relaxing takes. The relaxing. You see, it takes effort to draw a breath in. But it's always a matter of surrender to let the air out. It takes effort to draw a breath in. Let the breath out, it's just relaxing. It's just a surrender, right? And that sensitivity to the impermanent comes with the out-breath, with the surrendering, with the relaxing. And it's good to be sensitive. Because when we're sensitive to the impermanent, it's here, we gain hope. We gain hope. When we see that things can and do and must change, then we have hope for change. Then we have hope for change. Then we have hope that our suffering won't last forever. We see that it cannot. And in that stillness, as we become still, we can watch the change, the impermanence accelerate. And we find then that instead of watching the clock all day at work and life just being this drag and waiting for it to get over, that instead of that, change seems to accelerate. The time begins to fly by. Time begins to fly by. And we blink our eyes and the day is gone. And yet, at the same time, we see that everything slows down and comes into like a slow motion in the synchronization of it all. We become, in that stillness, we become intensely aware. We see more with less effort. In the stillness, we become intensely aware and we see more with less effort. We don't have to squint our eyes. We don't have to try hard to see. We don't have to try hard to see anymore. We begin to see with these soft eyes, these open eyes. The grimace on our face becomes relaxed, right? And then we begin to see the way we smile with this softness, with this effortlessness. It's no longer trying to put on a smile to make a show. It's just this gentle expression of contentment, this gentle expression of trust, of life to sustain us, to support us, to keep us. And we don't become overly excited or depressed. Yet we still feel deeply. But we feel deeply from a space of stillness, not caught up in the feelings themselves. And we stop seeking to feel anything. We stop looking for the special feeling. We stop looking for the sensational. And then feeling itself no longer comes with an effort for it. It's easy to feel. We simply feel. Because what we are is feeling sensitive people. Because we are feeling sensitive people, feeling isn't something that we do, it's what we are. Feeling no longer is something we do, it's what we are. When we're feeling, when we're sensitive, yet not the feelings themselves being something separate from us. Our hearts become extended. Our hearts become extended. And we feel by the connection we make. And when we touch, we are touched. The touching goes both ways. Both ways. And then it becomes where it's not a matter of our manipulating the world any longer. Simply not about that anymore. It's now about being, not manipulating. Being able to be touched, being able to be moved, rather than to manipulate, rather than to force. We find ourselves moved by the suffering and the joy of others. We find ourselves moved to respond with compassion, to feel the passion of others, out of our awareness of oneness with them. What we feel together. We feel together as members of one body of humanity, as members of one body of Christ. What we feel together, as one body of suchness, as one body of isness, as one I am. So that if the foot becomes injured, and we choose to ignore that, well, the whole body suffers. Until we give the foot the TLC, the tender loving care it needs, the attention it needs, the whole body remains in pain. Because, like it or not, we are one body of humanity. We're one body of humanity. Now that body may get drunk and intoxicated with many diverse things in order to escape the pain of the injured member. And it happens. Yet until that member is given the proper attention, the pain will remain. And we can even become grossly intoxicated to where all that's left is just the gut feeling that there's just something's not right. But no matter how intoxicated we choose to become, the sorrow will still be there, just underneath consciousness, until we give the attention to the members of the body that suffer. And this is why we feel so much better. when we're loving and we tend to one another with compassion. A hug, a kindly word, a simple gesture of just buying someone a meal, all that heals the one body. When you touch another with love, you touch the whole body. You lessen the pain of injury for all of humanity. With each kind word, with each small act of benevolence, you lose nothing but your own pain and sorrow when you nourish and love the body of humanity. Anytime that you give love, you give unto yourself. Because love is its own reward. 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 Namaste. Thank you.